I arrived at my in-laws' Christmas Eve party 2 hours earlier than planned, arms full of carefully wrapped gifts and an expensive bottle of champagne I had bought from a liquor store on the Upper East Side. The company party had been unbearably dull. Endless, draining conversations about year-end bonuses and holiday plans. So I slipped out early with the intention of surprising everyone at the Bennett family gathering. The front door of the house was unlocked, as it always was during parties, and I could hear laughter and music echoing from the living room as I stepped into the foyer, stomping snow off my boots. I was hanging my coat on the antique rack in the hallway, still smiling to myself with a quiet sense of pride at having arrived early, when my husband's voice rang out with startling clarity, cutting straight through the surrounding noise. "Madison is pregnant. We're going to have a baby boy." The champagne bottle slipped in my hand, and only thanks to reflexes honed by years of yoga did I keep it from crashing to the floor. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart suddenly pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Who was Madison, and why was my husband announcing that she was pregnant? I peeked into the living room around the corner of the wall, and the scene before me was so strange that for a moment I wondered if I had accidentally walked into the wrong house, into someone else's life. Noah, my husband, Noah Bennett, the man I had known since childhood, stood in the middle of the room, one arm wrapped tightly around the waist of a woman I vaguely recognized as his ex-girlfriend, the one he had dated for 3 years before he and I got together. She was glowing, one hand resting on a barely visible baby bump, accepting hugs and congratulations from everyone in the room. My mother-in-law, Jennifer, was crying with happiness. My father-in-law, Charles, was raising his glass in a toast. Family friends were clapping and cheering. Champagne glasses were lifted. People applauded, hugged one another, celebrated. I remained in the hallway, partially hidden behind the wall, as the full picture slowly came into focus. Then someone in the crowd shouted over the noise, "But what about Charlotte? Does she know?" The pause that followed was brief but absolute. Noah's smile tightened just slightly. "Not yet," he said, in that confident voice I'd always found so compelling. "I need to take care of some paperwork first, get a few things in order. But I'll tell her soon enough. Until she gets here, no one mentions this. Understood?" The whole room broke into knowing laughter. My stomach twisted painfully. Paperwork. What did he mean by that? Whispers of shared understanding rippled through the crowd. People exchanged looks, as if they all knew the secret. Jennifer nodded in agreement, as though endorsing the strategy. Charles lifted his glass again, and everyone raised theirs to toast the future. And everyone in that room, my in-laws, my husband's cousins, the close family friends I had known for years, they all knew. All of them were celebrating this pregnancy, this other woman, while I stood silently in the hallway, like a ghost at the funeral of my own life. Then Jennifer spoke, her voice carrying through the festive air. "Finally, after all these years, we're going to take back what was ours all along." Her words struck me like a physical blow. Every smile, every comforting gesture, every reassurance that I was family, none of it had been real. It had all been an act, a lie stretched out over more than a decade. They had never loved me. They had been playing a long game, and I was the prey. I turned and walked out of the house as quietly as I had entered, as if moving on instinct. No one saw me, no one noticed. I got into my car, closed the door, and only then did reality finally crash down on me. I began to cry, silent, burning tears spilling down my face as my chest tightened with pain. My marriage was a lie. My husband had gotten another woman pregnant. The people who had raised me after my parents died were plotting to take everything my parents had left me. And everyone, absolutely everyone, was part of it. Memories, like scattered fragments, began to knit themselves together, snapping into place in my mind. My name is Charlotte Prescott. I'm 28 years old, a senior project manager at one of Manhattan's most prestigious fintech firms, overseeing multi-million-dollar software implementations for major banking institutions. From the outside, my life appears perfect. A beautiful brownstone on the Upper East Side, a successful career, and a stable marriage to my childhood sweetheart. People often look at me with envy. I have known Noah Bennett since the day I was born at Lenox Hill Hospital. Our parents were inseparable friends since college, a friendship made up of shared vacations, shared holidays, and godparent agreements that bound our two families together like legal contracts. My parents, James and Isabel Prescott, were Noah's godparents. His parents, Jennifer and Charles Bennett, whom I was taught to call Aunt Jennifer and Uncle Charles, were my godparents. We grew up together. The same birthday parties, summer barbecues, family camping trips to the Hudson Valley. The Bennett family was woven into every childhood memory I have, as central to my idea of family as my own parents. But our lives moved along very different trajectories. My father was a successful entrepreneur who built a thriving import business from nothing. My mother was a renowned architect whose designs graced some of Manhattan's most exclusive buildings. I attended the Dalton School, had private tutors in French and Mandarin, studied ballet at Lincoln Center, and spent summers traveling through Europe with my parents, staying in renovated castles and medieval villas. Noah attended a public school. His father managed a hardware store. His mother worked as a medical secretary at a small clinic. They lived comfortably in a modest two-story house with aluminum siding and a chain-link fence. But there were no European vacations, no private schools, no personal tutors. As children, those class differences were completely invisible to us. We were just kids playing tag in Central Park, sharing Halloween candy. But looking back now with adult eyes, I can see the signs I missed. The way my mother-in-law Jennifer's gaze lingered on my mother's jewelry, her fingers unconsciously brushing her own bare neck. The way my father-in-law Charles commented on our brownstone, our cars, our lifestyle, always delivered with a laugh, disguised as friendly teasing, yet carrying an edge my naive mind could not understand. When I was 16, my world collapsed entirely. My parents were killed in a car accident on a stormy night. They were driving home from an anniversary dinner at a restaurant when a cargo truck overturned on the highway, crossed the median, and slammed head-on into their car. The police said they died instantly, as if that fact might offer comfort. It did not. Even now, 12 years later, part of me is still frozen in the moment the police knocked on our door at 2 in the morning. I can still see the streetlights reflecting off their rain-soaked coats, still hear the careful gentleness in the female officer's voice as she asked to come inside. After the funeral, Aunt Jennifer and Uncle Charles moved into the brownstone to live with me. I was still young, suddenly orphaned, and they came to stay so I wouldn't be alone in that large, empty house that still faintly smelled of my mother's gardenia perfume and my father's coffee. They were very kind. They made sure I was fed, that I went to school, and that I always had someone to talk to when grief threatened to overwhelm me. They constantly reassured me that I would always have a family, that they would take care of me. At the time, their presence felt like a lifeline. I clung to them because they were all I had left of the life I once knew. They managed my parents' assets until I turned 21. On my birthday, when I finally sat down with the lawyer and the accountant to understand exactly what my parents had left me, I discovered that I owned a substantial real estate portfolio, a brownstone worth approximately $10 million, and 4 additional condominiums scattered across Manhattan, all fully paid off. My parents had invested wisely. They had planned for a future they would never live to see. Aunt Jennifer and Uncle Charles patiently helped me navigate the enormous stack of paperwork, explaining every detail, answering all my confusing questions. When I turned 21 and was legally able to manage everything myself, they asked if they could continue living in the brownstone with me. They argued that it would be better for everyone if we stayed together as a family. I didn't hesitate. They had helped me survive the darkest years of my life. Letting them stay was the least I could do. Generosity, gratitude, naivety. Those 3 words perfectly described who I was back then. Noah and I started dating when I was 21, and it felt inevitable, like gravity. He was attentive, caring, and made me feel safe. He knew all my stories, understood my pain, had always been there for me. At least, that's what I believed. 2 years later, we got engaged, and 6 months after that, we were married in a ceremony at the brownstone that was worth more than most people's annual salaries. My mother in law, Jennifer, played a major role in planning the wedding. We chose the dress together, tasted cakes, discussed floral arrangements and color palettes. Your mother would have loved to be here with you, she said over and over, her eyes shimmering with tears. I believed she truly missed my mother. I believed she was stepping into that maternal role out of pure love. On the wedding day, Charles walked me down the makeshift aisle we had set up in the garden of the brownstone, his arm linked through mine, his eyes glistening with emotion. Your father would be so proud of you today, he whispered as we approached Noah waiting beneath the floral arch. I cried. I thought it was beautiful. I believed everything was love, and I let go of every last defense because I trusted them completely. After the wedding, Noah and I moved into one of the condominiums I had inherited, a spacious 2-bedroom in Chelsea with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. Noah insisted that he wanted us to build our own life together, that we didn't need that massive brownstone. At the time, it sounded reasonable, even romantic. I threw myself into my career, working 60 hours a week to climb the ladder at a fintech company. Noah began what he called day trading, working from home, investing in stocks and cryptocurrency. At least, that was the story I was told. The other 3 apartments were rented out. Noah volunteered to manage the properties. You already work so hard, he said one evening, pulling me onto his lap as I reviewed spreadsheets on my laptop. Let me handle the rentals. That way you can focus on your career and I'll take care of this side of things. It seemed like a fair division of labor. He sent me monthly reports on rental income and assured me he was reinvesting the profits to maximize our assets. I never doubted him. Why would I? He was my husband. He grew up with me. His parents were my godparents, living in my house, part of my everyday life. I remembered that 2 weeks before Christmas, Noah came home after a meeting with his lawyer, holding a document in his hand. Honey, I need you to sign this, he said casually as he tossed it onto the kitchen table. It's just a power of attorney. It'll make things run more smoothly. I can renew leases without interrupting your important meetings, handle property issues, deal with the banks. You'll be completely free to focus on your work. I picked up the document and skimmed it. The legal terminology gave me an instant headache. I'll read it carefully later, I said, setting the paper down next to my coffee mug. For just a split second, I saw something flicker across Noah's face, his jaw tightening, a cold flash in his eyes. But it vanished so quickly that I thought I must have imagined it. Of course, no problem, he said, the smile already back on his face. Whenever you have time. I slipped the power of attorney into my desk drawer and quickly forgot about it. Work at that point was pure chaos. We were finalizing a major deployment before year's end, and I was coordinating teams across 3 different time zones, managing stakeholder expectations, and putting out fires on a daily basis. As my legs trembled and my mind spun, I realized with a strange, icy clarity that this wasn't just betrayal. This was something far more calculated, far more sinister. In that moment, everything suddenly clicked into place with terrifying precision. Everyone in that room had known. There was a scheme, a plan, the power of attorney, all of it fit together. I drove back to the apartment in Chelsea on autopilot. When I got home, I washed my face, looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked smaller, more broken, more lost. My phone vibrated. A message from Noah. Where are you? The company Christmas party had been scheduled for today, starting at 6 in the evening. I had agreed with Noah that I would leave around 10 to go to his parents' house for the family's traditional Christmas gathering. It was our annual ritual. The brownstone would be packed with Noah's relatives and his parents' friends, people I barely knew but smiled at year after year because I was grateful to be considered part of the family. Tonight, the company party was even duller than usual. the same familiar conversations about bonuses, the same drunk coworkers singing terrible karaoke, the same flat jokes about New Year's resolutions. Around 7 o'clock, I decided to leave early to surprise everyone, to arrive earlier than planned, maybe help with the final preparations. And because of that, I saw the true face of my in-laws' family. I took a deep breath and typed back. I decided to stay at the company party. It's more fun than I expected. He replied instantly, Okay, have fun. See you in 2 weeks. I'm heading to Maui early tomorrow morning. Of course! The annual family visit to relatives in Hawaii. Since we got married, his family was supposedly going to visit distant relatives every Christmas, staying until early January. They knew that period was always extremely busy at my company. Fiscal year end, final reports, client meetings. So every year I stayed behind while they went on vacation. I had never questioned it. I was grateful that they understood my work commitments. I replied, All right, safe travels. Noah texted back, Merry Christmas, love you, with a heart emoji. I didn't respond. I locked my phone, tossed it onto the sofa, and sat in the dark living room, letting the anger rise. Because right then, sitting in the darkness, I realized something important. The tears had stopped. There was no room left for pain or sorrow. There was only room for strategy. They thought I was a fool. They thought I would always be that grieving teenager, grateful for scraps of affection, blindly trusting and signing whatever papers they put in front of me. They were catastrophically wrong. I became a project manager because I am good at planning, organizing, mitigating risk, and solving problems under pressure. I specialize in crisis management. I make hard decisions. I execute complex strategies. And sitting there, in the darkness of my own apartment, I made the most important decision of my life. We were going to play their game. But this time, by my rules. My mind spun with scenarios and strategies. First, I reviewed the facts. Noah was having an affair with his ex-girlfriend, Madison. She was pregnant. His entire family supported it. The power of attorney was the key that would allow them to transfer my assets. But I hadn't signed it yet. That was the crucial point. As long as my signature wasn't on that document, I still had control. I picked up the phone and called Robert, the lawyer who had handled my parents' estate. Years ago, he had told me that if I ever needed anything, all I had to do was ask. Mr. Robert, this is Charlotte Prescott. I need to see you urgently. He must have heard the resolve in my voice because he didn't ask any questions. Come to my office first thing tomorrow morning. I'll rearrange my schedule. That night, I couldn't fall asleep. Noah didn't come back to our apartment. The next morning, I showered, put on my sharpest suit, the Armani I usually wore when presenting to important clients, and drove to his office in the financial district. Mr. Robert greeted me with a worried expression, his gray hair slightly disheveled, as if he had run a hand through it. Sit down, Charlotte. Tell me what happened. I told him everything. The announcement at the party, the power of attorney, my suspicions about the rental income. I spoke continuously for 40 minutes, my voice steady. He listened in silence, taking notes, his frown deepening with every sentence. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Charlotte, I need to tell you a few things about your father and Charles Bennett. My heart started pounding. What? Many years ago, your father and Charles were business partners in an import company. When the company ran into financial trouble, Charles wanted out. Your father bought out his shares at fair market value. In fact, according to the records, he paid slightly above fair market value. Charles took the money and left. He paused, took a sip of water. 2 years later, your father turned the company around. It grew tremendously. That's how your family built its wealth. Charles made a business decision to sell. Your father took the risk and reaped the reward. But I don't think Charles ever truly accepted that. Mr. Robert looked out at the Manhattan skyline. When your parents died and you inherited everything, you became a uniquely vulnerable target. A traumatized teenager with millions of dollars in assets and no parents to protect her. A harsh realization hit me. So this has been planned since my parents died? Quite possibly since before they died? he said quietly. The resentment may have always been there, simmering. And when they saw their opportunity, he didn't finish the sentence. I slid the unsigned power of attorney across his desk. What does this actually do? He spent 15 minutes reading the document carefully, like a lawyer, making notes in the margins. Finally, he looked up. This gives Noah full control over everything you own. He could sell properties, transfer ownership, mortgage assets, open lines of credit in your name. Once you sign this, you completely lose control of your estate. What if I had already signed it? Reversing that would take years of litigation with no guarantee of success. Proving coercion or fraud within a marriage is extremely difficult. And in the case of a divorce, would he get half? Mr. Roberts smiled for the first time. No. Under New York law, everything you inherited is separate property. Assets inherited before or during a marriage are not subject to equitable distribution. If you divorce now, Noah gets nothing. I opened the file I had brought with me. I need you to review these lease agreements. Noah has been managing my properties for 3 years. He says he's been reinvesting the income, but I've never seen any proof. Mr. Roberts spent 2 hours analyzing every document, making phone calls and checking records. When he finished, his expression was grim. Charlotte, the rental income has been deposited into Noah's personal account, not a joint account. He has been systematically embezzling the money, and one apartment has a signed lease but no record of any rent payments at all. Madison, I said flatly, his mistress is living in my property rent-free. He nodded. Very likely. What should I do? I asked. First, we will hire a private investigator to trace exactly where the money went and gather evidence for potential criminal charges. Second, immediately reclaim control of your assets. Third, and most importantly, never sign that power of attorney under any circumstances. That afternoon, I acted with absolute precision. Following Mr. Roberts' instructions, I hired a property management company and signed a limited power of attorney for specific leasing-related tasks, entirely different from the comprehensive power of attorney Noah wanted. I instructed them to immediately notify all tenants. Starting in January, rent would be paid directly to the management company through a new portal. New lease agreements would be issued. Tenants had 1 week to sign, or they could move out. I also hired a security company to install discrete cameras throughout the house. Tiny lenses hidden in paintings, wall clocks, and decorative objects. High-quality audio. All of it connected to an app on my phone. I paid double to have everything completed before Noah returned. That evening, Noah came home, dragging behind him a pile of designer luggage I had never seen before. So, how did it go? He asked, kissing my cheek as if our marriage were still intact, as if nothing had changed. How's work? Busy, but I managed to finish a few projects ahead of schedule. I gripped my coffee mug tightly to keep myself steady. Did you look over the paperwork I gave you? There it was. I smiled brightly. Actually, honey, you don't need to worry about that anymore. I've taken care of the rental situation. His face went rigid. What do you mean? I hired a professional property management company. Now you can focus entirely on trading without having to worry about tenant issues or maintenance. I want you to have more time for your investments. The silence was terrifying. I watched the color drain from his face. But I like managing the properties, he stammered. I know, but you're always saying you need more time to study the market. Now you have it. Isn't that great? Fear flashed in his eyes. This is very sudden. I smiled even more brightly. You know I'd like that. He muttered something unintelligible, and then practically ran into the bedroom with his phone ringing in his hand. I waited 30 seconds, then opened the camera app and activated the recording mode. Calm down, Noah hissed into the phone. I don't know what happened. She hired a management company. No, I can't. Madison, I don't have $3,000 to pay rent. The income stream is gone. Screaming erupted from the other end of the line. I cut the feed and smiled. Later that night, over dinner, I dropped another bombshell. My boss called. I have to go to Tokyo urgently. There's a serious issue with the new project rollout. I'm leaving tonight. Tonight? Noah asked, trying to sound disappointed, while his eyes flickered with calculation. The flight is at 2 a.m. I'll leave around 11. I sighed dramatically. I'm sorry, honey. It's fine, he said quickly. Work comes first. After dinner, I went to pack my things. That was when I realized something. The jewelry in my safe was gone. My grandmother's pearl necklace, the diamond earrings my parents gave me for my 16th birthday, my mother's jade pendant. Rage flared inside me, hot and sharp, but I kept my face calm. I changed the safe's passcode, locked the remaining jewelry inside, and finished packing. As I left, I discreetly slipped Noah's car keys into my bag. I didn't go to the airport. I checked into a hotel, ordered room service, and sat watching events unfold on my phone. An hour after I left, Noah called. Do you know where my car keys are? I feigned confusion. No. Why would you need them so late? Never mind. Have a good flight. I opened the camera app and watched him tear the apartment apart, looking for the keys while I lay on the bed in my hotel room. After 15 minutes of fruitless searching, he collapsed onto the sofa, frustration etched across his face. 30 minutes later, the front door opened. Charles, Jennifer, and Madison walked in. I turned the volume all the way up. Explain what's going on, my mother-in-law Jennifer demanded, folding her arms. Noah looked defeated. She hired a property management company. All the rental income goes to her now. New contracts for everyone. I don't have access. What about Madison's apartment? Charles asked. She got the notice too. Sign a new lease and pay rent, or get evicted. Madison put a hand on her stomach. Noah, I don't have money to pay rent. I know. You'll have to stay with my parents until I figure this out. Figure out how? Uncle Charles nearly shouted. We've lost access to everything. Years of planning, and you let it slip away. I didn't give anything away, Noah snapped back. She suddenly got suspicious. 5 years of marriage, and she never questioned anything, and then suddenly… Because you rushed the power of attorney, Jennifer cut in, her face hardened with calculation. You pushed too hard, too fast. The room fell into a heavy silence. Madison nervously toyed with the necklace she was wearing, the jade pendant that belonged to my mother, and I felt my anger surge so violently that I had to close my eyes and breathe deeply. What do we do now? Madison asked. I'll convince her to sign the power of attorney, Noah said. It's the only way. Jennifer leaned forward. Noah, we didn't take care of that girl all these years, just to end up with nothing. We made sacrifices, and we deserve to be compensated. I felt sick. The cold cruelty in her voice was astonishing. Charles added, That company should have been half ours. Her father was greedy, bought my shares for next to nothing, kept all the profits. Then he died and left everything to that useless daughter. This is just us taking back what we're owed. Jennifer nodded. She had everything, private schools, European trips, that massive house, while we struggled to get by. When her parents died, it was our chance to correct that injustice. And we were patient. We earned her trust. She let us live in her house, handed over control of her assets to our son, and married him. Everything was perfect until you ruined it. I didn't ruin anything. Noah slammed his hand on the table. The plan was, she signs the power of attorney, transfers all the assets into my name, then we file for divorce. She would lose everything, but she won't sign. Then make her sign it, Charles said coldly. Blackmail, threaten her. Find her weakness and use it. Whatever it takes. I felt terrified. The people I had known since childhood, my godparents, my husband, now they were in my house, calmly discussing how to trap me and destroy me, speaking as casually as if they were planning a dinner party. They talked for another hour, their plans growing more reckless and illegal by the minute. Finally, they left around 3 in the morning. I turned off the recording, my hands shaking uncontrollably. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a conspiracy that had been unfolding for 12 years, ever since my parents died. Every moment I thought was family, every reassurance, every display of affection, had been calculated, weighed carefully, executed with cold precision. At 7 in the morning, I sent everything to Mr. Robert. He called me back immediately. Charlotte, are you safe? Yes, I'm at a hotel. Good. Come to my office this afternoon. We're going to end this. At 2 in the afternoon, I sat in Mr. Roberts' office. He had reviewed the recordings, his face tight with restrained anger. This is worse than we imagined, he said. But it's also perfect for your case. The private investigator has completed his report. He turned his laptop toward me. The rental income has been diverted into Noah's personal accounts for 3 years. Bank statements show excessive gambling, online poker, sports betting, casino visits. Noah is a severe gambling addict. I was stunned by the new information, but nothing could break me anymore. And the Hawaii trips were a lie, he continued. Every year, all 4 of them, Noah, Madison, Charles, Jennifer, stayed at luxury resorts. I have hotel bookings, flight records, all paid for with credit cards linked to the accounts where your rental income was deposited. He showed me the evidence. Booking confirmations, airline tickets, resort invoices. While I stayed in Manhattan working, believing they were visiting family, they were living lavishly on my money. I want to destroy them legally. Immediate divorce on grounds of adultery and fraud. I want Noah left with nothing. I will evict Charles and Jennifer from my parents' house. I want to recover the stolen rental income, file criminal charges for the theft of my jewelry. I said the words calmly, even as fury burned inside me. We'll do all of that, and we can pursue fraud charges that could lead to prison time, Mr. Roberts said without hesitation. For the next 3 days, I stayed at the hotel and watched the cameras. Noah and Madison behaved like a couple in my house, touching, laughing, sleeping in my bed. On the 3rd night, I decided it was time for the grand finale. I watched on my phone as Noah and Madison relaxed on the sofa with glasses of wine. Perfect. I drove to the apartment, slipped inside quietly, and flung open the living room door. The scene unfolded exactly as I expected. Madison was sitting on Noah's lap, wearing my silk robe. They were kissing. The slam of the door made them jump apart. Noah's face went white. Charlotte! You were supposed to be in Tokyo! I stood in the doorway, completely calm. I want a divorce. He froze. What? You heard me. You have 1 hour to leave my apartment. Madison pulled the blanket around herself, staring at me like I was the villain breaking into her home. Noah stepped forward, and I saw a flash of arrogance cross his face. You can't prove anything, and even if you could, you'd have to pay me alimony. This apartment, the properties, I get half in the divorce. I smiled. Then I turned and walked away, ignoring his shouting. In the elevator, my smile widened. He really thought I had no evidence. He thought I was stupid enough not to know that inherited assets are separate property. I went back to my car and called Jennifer. I came home early and caught Noah with another woman. I'm calling my lawyer. I want a divorce. I said each word clearly, coldly, though Jennifer probably didn't hear anything beyond the words divorce and lawyer. Silence, then. Charlotte, don't rush. Come to the brownstone. We'll talk. Her voice was urgent on the phone. He betrayed me. There's nothing to fix. I hung up and opened the camera app. Noah's phone rang. Jennifer's shrill voice blasted from the speaker. Are you insane? How could you let her catch you? Years of planning, all ruined because you couldn't control yourself. Mom, let me explain. Explain what? She's filing for divorce. You've destroyed everything. Those assets should have been ours. I'll fix it. Jennifer laughed bitterly, almost hysterical. Those assets are her inheritance. They aren't divided in a divorce. You get nothing, and you still have to support your pregnant girlfriend. You're an idiot. I watched Noah collapse onto the sofa as the brutal reality hit him. Madison tried to comfort him, but he shoved her away. I turned off the camera. Phase 1 was complete. The next morning, process servers arrived at both the brownstone and the apartment. Jennifer called, screaming hysterically. Eviction notices? You're throwing us out? Why? What did we do wrong? This is Noah's fault. Charlotte, we loved you like our own daughter. Jennifer, I know everything now. The fake trips, the stolen rent, the 12-year plan. I know it all. Silence. You have 30 days. Find a lawyer. I hung up. Then my phone kept ringing with missed calls from Noah. I declined everyone. He chose betrayal, so now he could face the consequences. There was no room left for his lies. The next 2 months passed like a legal whirlwind. Noah's lawyer essentially begged him to sign the uncontested divorce papers. This is your only option, I heard the lawyer say in the courthouse hallway. The evidence is overwhelming. I watched Noah sign, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. He never once looked at me. The judgment on the stolen rental income followed soon after. $280,000 to be repaid, along with a 30% wage garnishment. The problem was, Noah had been fired from his old job. The judge was not impressed. Just a few weeks later, Noah found work at a cafe. Early mornings, minimum wage, serving customers and wiping tables. Charles and Jennifer were given 30 days to move out. On inspection day, I discovered they had vandalized the house. Furniture smashed, walls punched through, insults spray-painted across the kitchen. Charles was waiting at the door. Satisfied now? He snarled. You destroyed my house. We have nowhere to go. We're old, we have no money, and you took everything from us. I took back what was always mine. You're the ones who pretended for 12 years that it was yours. Your father stole from us, Charles growled. My father bought your shares legally. You chose to sell when you thought it was failing. That was not his fault, and it certainly isn't mine. Jennifer appeared. You'll regret this. No, I said quietly. I won't. I had the brownstone fully restored to how it looked when my parents were alive, and rented it long-term to a young family with 2 children, with just one condition: take care of it. They were overjoyed, already planning birthday parties in the garden. That house deserved better memories. I sold the Chelsea apartment without ever going back to see it. I hired people to clear it out, renovate it, and sold it fully furnished. Of the 5 inherited properties, I rented out the remaining 3 apartments and placed them under professional management. The proceeds from the sale were enough to cover my living expenses, and I invested the rest. Through mutual friends, I learned how things ended up. Noah and Madison broke up. She moved back in with her parents. Noah lived alone in a single room in a rough neighborhood, working at the cafe, estranged from his parents. Charles and Jennifer lived in a tiny apartment, both working minimum wage jobs they were far too old to be doing. The family that had meticulously planned everything had fallen apart. Separated, bitter, blaming one another. Mr. Robert called monthly to check in, occasionally updating me on legal matters. Noah tried to appeal the wage garnishment again, he told me last month. Denied, that's the 5th time. We laughed together. 3 months after the divorce, I packed my belongings and left Manhattan. I didn't leave in bitterness. When everything was over, the only thing I took from that marriage was a single wedding photo placed neatly at the bottom of my suitcase. Not as a wound, but as a reminder. Silent proof that some betrayals don't arrive with shouting, but with fake hugs, warm family dinners, and promises repeated long enough to feel like habit. I moved to Asheville on a bright, sunny morning, the city opening up before me without noise or spectacle. Just high sky, dry air, and a sense of space wide enough to breathe without bumping into old memories. My small apartment has a balcony overlooking distant mountains, and in the mornings, the light seeps into the kitchen slowly, as if it understands I need time. I make coffee, open the windows, listen to birds instead of phone notifications, and for the first time in years, I don't have to check where someone is or which account the money is flowing into. I work as an independent consultant. No fixed office, no packed meeting schedule. I choose my projects, my clients, even the days when I do nothing at all. I've traveled. France, Italy, Japan. This time actually going to Tokyo, experiencing the world on my own terms. 3 years have passed since that Christmas night. Every morning I wake up in my home in Asheville, make coffee, sit on the porch, and look out at the garden. The roses are in full bloom. The hydrangeas, too. I haven't seriously dated. I've gone out a few times, but nothing lasted. Last month, a kind man tried to take my hand on the third date, and I pulled mine back on instinct, pure reflex. I'm not ready, I told him. He stopped calling. I don't blame him, because when you spend years trusting family completely, only to discover it was all an elaborate lie, something fundamental breaks. Now I look at people with suspicion, always searching for the trick, the hidden motive. It's exhausting and lonely, but it makes me feel safe. Sometimes I wonder if it's fair, to myself, to people who might genuinely care, that I wear this armor against everyone. But then I remember what blind trust, never questioning, nearly cost me. What I've learned is that living alone doesn't mean living empty. I fill my life with other things: books, travel, the garden, the house I've turned into a true home, carefully chosen friends kept at a safe distance. I travel alone. Early trains, small hotels, slow dinners at local places where no one knows who I used to be. I've learned to listen to my body, when to stop because I'm tired, when to stay longer because I'm happy. I laugh more. In the evenings, sometimes I take out the wedding photo, place it on the table, and look at it for a long time. Not to hurt, just to remember. Then I put it away, turn off the lights, draw the curtains, and let the room sink into quiet. No fake laughter behind the walls, no whispered plans in my house. Just me, whole, clear-headed, and free. I didn't just survive betrayal, I audited it, I exposed it, and I walked away, richer in money, in understanding, and in myself. Because there are lives that don't need revenge to win. They only need enough clarity to leave, and enough courage to keep living, lighter. If you're still here, thank you for staying with my story. And if any part of it felt familiar, if you've ever trusted too much, loved too quietly, or realized too late that the people closest to you were not who you thought they were, then this ending is for you. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they once called themselves family. Healing doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like walking away with your head clear and your boundaries intact. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Share it with someone who might need to hear that survival doesn't always come with drama. It can come with clarity. And if you want more stories like this, quiet strength, hard truths, and choosing yourself, subscribe and stay. Not every victory needs applause. Some just need peace.